Delighted to have Andy Hudson, who's going to energise the room and get everyone up. And Andy's going to take us through big data. And and you're not that big. You're like
unlike you. Hey, good afternoon. I'm sorry I've got the lunchtime shift, and data is something that obviously everybody sort of wants to normally fall asleep to. But I'm going to try and make it a little bit more exciting. My name's Andy Hudson. Among other things, I'm the founder of Downroute, an expense and hotel booking application which I designed 3 years ago for the operators and travelling crew in this marketplace. The basic functions of the product speak for themselves, and the reason I'm telling you this now because then I can move away from the product and more about what's behind it. But when we developed the product, we realized very quickly that actually the data that we capture and the data there is around is far more powerful if we, and you, on your data capture, you know what to do with it. It's almost like a trail of data that's been collected in everything that we do, in every part of our businesses. But then what do we do with it? How do we analyze that data? We've heard earlier this morning about people talking about the big D, references to other things we won't go on to, but the big D and big data. And what do you do once you've collected that data, and how do you analyze it? I need the clicker. To give you some idea of the amount of data that is being collected, and to put into perspective the amount of data that's being collected, and that we, as a human race, collect, store in the model world, here are some figures that were taken and published from last year. I think you can probably see that they are quite astounding figures. And I think they went well above my head when I sort of saw these figures, to give you an idea of how much data is being created. To give you a little bit more perspective, here's how that compares in just 10 years. And for the non-geeks in the room, a zettabyte is 10 followed by 21 zeros, or 1 trillion gigabytes. As for the real geeks in the room, that's still less than a gargoyle, which is 10 followed by 100 zeros. So the big firm really did data-proof themselves. To put this into terms that means something to us, the non-geeks, technology is now allowing us to collect an incredible amount of data on everything. In this room alone, all of us have got mobile phones standing there. Those units, those devices are collecting data as we sit here. It's what we do with that data, or what we allow that data to be used for. And more importantly, it's about our ability to be able to interpret, utilize, and do something more with that data. Because the real question is, so what? We collect data, so what? What do we do with that data? Terms are being called as big data, just data. But what we want to look at is how you turn big data into smart data. Because smart data is the future. It's no exaggeration to say that data is a commodity, and it's fast becoming a commodity, very much like oil. And us working in the aviation industry, we are fully aware of the off spills of refining oil. And it's an incredible asset. Data is an incredible asset to us, if only we know how to use it. It's also going to drive the global economy. Over the last century, data, with all of its potential to help us make decisions, manage better, create markets, open new markets, exploit markets, spot opportunities. It's an asset that we really need to understand if we want to survive in business. But unlike smart data, data on its own is useless. You can collect as much data as you want, but if you don't know how to use it or turn it into smart data, it's just taking up storage. So now we're creating and storing all this data with the facts and figures that we just looked at. Who spends what on what? How much, how often? What worked, what failed? Who did what to who, or who did what to and when, and so on. We've created this big data, an enormous stockpile of facts and figures, images, videos, instrument readings, pretty much everything and anything. The key now is how to exploit it. And what will that exploration mean to you as an individual and to a company? To carry on with the oil analogy, if I may, how do we refine into jet fuel? Get something really useful out of it. In tech speak, how do we turn it into smart data? And this is how we see being smart data means more than just drilling down into the big data. We actually get smart data with how we collate and collect the data in the first place. So we don't need as much of it. So rather than collecting all of it, let's start collecting the parts that are valuable to us. For the chemists in the room, it's the fracking and cracking to release the natural gases. So you've got to frack and crack the data to make sure that you get it out without the side effects. And here's where we see the link to the Internet of Things. Keeping track and analysing how we use it, what we use it for. Not just the facts, the numbers, the data sheets, the analysts, and the documents. The key point to take from this here is that there's a whole next generation of software being developed that will help us exploit the big data and help create it into smart data. The areas where smart data come into play is limitless, and it's only limited by our imaginations. And quite often at the moment, sitting here, we won't even know what's coming around the corner. In this technology world that we all live and work in, there are changes, there are new things that are happening on an hourly basis, let alone a daily basis. What we do know is whether they appreciate it's because the way data is available now, users and customers, your users, your customers, do expect more from us, i.e. the suppliers. What we're starting to take for granted as people, and you think about it yourselves, when you go to a shop, when you buy something online, you're now starting to expect the purchaser or the seller that you're buying from knows more about you. We've all heard reports, and every time you go onto an internet shopping site, you know that they've already tracked you, they've already got your preferences there. We as users are starting to expect that. And that should be following through into the human life rather than just the digital life. So we want to know how our customers are spending money. And once we know that, we should be able to then predict how our customers will spend money. And by predicting how our customers will spend money in our industry, we'll ultimately have a greater cost saving to our business. Let's try and focus on a couple of things, a couple of areas, which there are many, but just two areas, on how we could predict or use data, customers' data, our data, to predict cost savings. So, refueling. How could we use that information? Well, with the information that's supplied by the avionics on an aircraft, we know how much fuel should be used from flying from destination A to destination B. Then you put in the weather, so we should then be able to work out calculations. But then we have that human factor. For those pilots that still want to fly by hand and not use the autopilot so much, therefore then there's going to be a little bit of leeway in that. But that data will give you whether your pilots are flying efficiently, aggressively, because after a time you're going to start seeing the same route with an owner's flight. You're going to see if an owner flies this route 10 times a year, and there's 3 different crews flying it, with the weather that happens, you can start soon calculating, actually pilot A has got a heavy left foot, pilot B is more economical. That sort of information that's going to be really helpful for you in the future. So what else can we look at, just where we can have a little bit of a scenario? Catering. We can predict catering needs. How can we predict catering needs? Catering and drink needs. Because again, with regular clients, they form habits. With the data that you have, you get a catering receipt come through as an operator from a catering supplier. The chances are you take that catering receipt, you just shove it into accounts and pay it. Why aren't you analysing that form? Why aren't you taking that data and saying, customer A prefers this. He flies on this morning, he prefers that. Next morning it might be this. You're starting to build a digital footprint of that customer. Likewise for your crew as well. But that's just two examples of where taking the data, you can start analysing it and turning it into smart data. One that's probably going to get the lawyers and the aircraft salespeople up in arms here, but again, it is coming. Aircraft transactions, we've heard about this on many CJI conferences, many other conferences. Blockchain, how blockchain is going to change the world for aircraft transactions, because we take out that thing called humans. But it is secure. Smart contracts are coming. Many people are using them now. And also to note that JetNet just launched aircraft values and JetNet API this week. So they're starting to set some boundaries in the respect of they understand that these smart contracts, this smart data is out there, and obviously they want to capitalise on it. The key to being able to collect and analyse the data in such a meaningful way means making smart choices. With the software that's out there, and you develop or you buy, and employing the staff who really understand it. Making sure that whatever systems you use in your business allow you to ask the right questions, get meaningful answers, and don't forget, asking the right questions will generate the meaningful answers. There may be software already existing in your business that you think is getting there, but again, you need to look at it, you need to analyse it, you need to look at the output that you're getting there. If not, you may need to look at changing that, or buying or renting other software to break that system down. There are going to be implications to taking this result and this approach, but implications are good for businesses. It forces change. It forces change for the good, but it also forces good profit. Some of the fundamental changes that you may need to adopt are going to be, employing staff or changing systems. But that shouldn't shy us away from the fact that we as an industry need to get smarter with our data. What it really does, it comes back to good old ROI. How much will this data cost me? And what's the benefit to my organisation? Can I use this data? And in certain cases, can I sell that data as it's an additional revenue stream? Don't forget, these reports that come out and are sold on the market, which people sell there, they might phone you up and get your piece of data. You're going to hand over that piece of data because you think it's valueless. They're going to collate that data, and then they're going to turn that data into a value chain, and then they're going to sell that market report because they've spoken to 1,500 people, and they now put a value on that. What do you get out of that? Just saying. Maybe now it's time to start, when people are asking you for the information, you start asking them for money and for sharing your data. If the competitors are now starting to look at this and be realistically that smart data is now out there and how we're going to capitalise on data, it's about time we all individually and collectively as an organisation, as an industry, started looking at it. So that's a very low, top-level overview of the very big subject. But I hope it's managed, because I'm looking at the time, it's managed to get the key points across over smart data. Smart data, there are examples where smart data have been used. There are examples where big data have been used. You take the data, and data has been used in elections several years ago in the US, and probably more recently where data is used. You take the data, you then get the result. In the meantime, people think there's going to be smart data. What keeps that smart data from becoming stupid data to kick out an incorrect result? That's the question. So you've got to make sure you get the right analysts involved to ensure that you get that, that scenario. But it is a two-stage process. First, always look to see how you record and get the data, report on what's happening, whether it's through expense management, hotel bookings, travelling costs, aircraft performance data, avionics, audit trail, contract processes. Collect the big data. Using modern tools and analytics, analyze as much data as you can about the business, the industry. This means everything you buy and sell, whether it's from a cockpit instrument from a major manufacturer to a bar receipt from Orchard Towers, for those of you that were there last night are here. Just make sure you collect it and analyse it. The other thing to remember is that the use of the best software tools, you can analyse the data under the control of people that understand data. Because understanding data means that you can really start using it. And that really turns big data into smart data. And no, that's not fact on this. I see some of you laughing. But the fact is true. 84% of what people read on slides. But this is more coming to our industry. We need to survive evolution. We need to empower the younger generation. We need to get the younger generation coming through. We need to start listening to the younger generation. We need to start utilising their experience with their technology because they understand it far quicker than you, I, or anybody in this room will, because they've grown up with it. They do this stuff for breakfast. I mean, while I've got 3 minutes, I'll just share one little anecdote with you. I thought I was quite tech savvy, being able to text and WhatsApp and all this lot, and walk and talk and do this. And then you have the two phones. You look at the kids of today, 7, 8-year-olds who are still on iPads, and they can get around their phones probably faster than you and I can. They're so tech savvy with that. Even to the degree of basic coding, a lot of them now are doing it. So we have to bring that into our industry. We are not Jurassic in this industry. This industry does have a stigma that to work in private aviation, you have to be old, grey, boring. We're not. We're not. We have to bring the younger generation into our industry because we're going to beat evolution, but we won't do it on our own. We need to get the younger generation into it. A famous quote, which is so prevalent today, and this was written many, 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 many years ago, even before I was alive, this was written, which I know sounds hard. Thank you.